They say every family has secrets. Some hide financial disasters, others hide emotional catastrophes. Clara's family?
They collected secrets the way some people collect porcelain figurines, excessively, unnecessarily, and with questionable taste. And yet, Clara, in a moment of pure optimism or temporary insanity, no one could really tell, decided she would plan the perfect family reunion. The kind that looks like the closing scene of a Hallmark movie: golden sunlight, warm hugs, meaningful laughter. Maybe a sentimental slow-motion shot of everyone smiling. She spent months preparing every detail, convinced she was crafting something wholesome, healing, cinematic. She wanted peace. She summoned chaos. She wanted unity. She got a psychological thriller. And before everything crashes and burns, because it will, you might as well subscribe, like, and share the story with someone whose family is also a special kind of exhausting. Misery does love company.
Clara had grown up listening to the exaggerated, rose-tinted stories of past family gatherings. According to the elders, they were magical events filled with endless meals, heartfelt conversations, and joyous chaos.
The problem with nostalgia is that it lies.
A lot.
But Clara chose to ignore that completely and threw herself into creating a reunion worthy of a magazine spread. She booked a beautiful lakeside house, all green lawns, tall trees, sunlight shimmering on the water, and outdoor furniture arranged strategically to inspire deep bonding and natural, candid moments. She decorated, organized the menu, printed out old photos, curated a playlist, and even designed a cheesy golden family logo. Honestly, it looked like a wedding monogram, but she pretended it was classy. The first guest to arrive was Aunt Regina, pulling behind her two enormous suitcases that could easily hold a small person. Regina had the uncanny ability to complain before she even finished breathing in. Clara greeted her with a warm smile. Regina frowned. "I thought it would be bigger." Clara's eye twitched, but she kept her composure. Next came her cousin Eduardo, who never missed an opportunity to announce every inconvenience in his life. The weather? Too hot. The road? Too long. The scenery? Too naturey. He stepped out of his car as if he had survived a dramatic expedition. "This place smells like trees," he said, offended. Clara forced another smile. Then arrived Paula, Clara's older sister, self-appointed family critic, collector of unsolicited opinions, and expert in passive-aggressive commentary. She walked inside, scanned the decorations, and said, "Well, you tried." Clara mentally set something on fire. Moments later, Uncle Jonas pulled up in a car that sounded like it was being held together by duct tape and hope. He stepped out grinning far too widely for someone who was clearly liquid-happy. His wife, Marta, exited after him, wearing an expression that said she regretted every choice that led her to this moment. And then the worst part, they brought Caio. Caio was that one cousin who appears only in the most chaotic family stories, the kind you tell with a sigh, and a "you won't believe this." He wasn't invited. He came anyway. The tension in Clara's smile reached structural failure levels. The house filled with complaints almost immediately. Regina hated her mattress. Eduardo said the playlist was trying too hard. Paula judged the food with the intensity of a Michelin inspector. Jonas asked for wine at 11 in the morning. Caio simply wandered around sniffing things, for reasons unknown. But Clara, eternal optimist, believed the lunch she prepared would fix everything. She spent hours cooking colorful salads, perfectly seasoned meats, fresh bread, pasta made with love or whatever was left of her sanity. Lunch was her chance. Her moment. Her downfall. Regina poked her salad and said, "No mayo?" Eduardo lifted the lasagna like he was examining evidence. Jonas toasted to good family energy with wine no one wanted. And Caio, absolutely useless, sniffed his plate and declared, "It smells like summer vacation." What does that even mean? Clara didn't want to know. Still, she breathed deeply and reminded herself, "You love them. You love them. Maybe." And then Paula, because of course it was Paula, ruined everything. "Mom," she said suddenly, staring at Regina like a prosecutor ready to slam evidence on the table, Don't you think it's time you tell everyone what happened that Christmas you disappeared for hours? A fork dropped. Someone inhaled sharply. The room froze. Regina blinked.
Paula, don't.
Oh, I will, Paula announced, delighted to start a fire. Everyone deserves the truth. Clara knew that tone. She also knew she was doomed. Eduardo, king of jumping into conversations he shouldn't, added. And while we're at it, maybe Jonas should explain the whole business venture situation. Jonas stopped mid-sip. Marta closed her eyes in pain. Caio, bless his chaotic soul, grinned like he had been waiting for this moment his entire life. And then it happened. The popping of emotional popcorn. One confession after another. Regina admitted that the mysterious Christmas disappearance wasn't an errand gone wrong. She had locked herself in the car and cried for hours because she was tired of being the strong one. Eduardo confessed he was nearly bankrupt, but still pretended everything was fine. Jonas admitted his brilliant business idea was barely legal and probably doomed. Marta nodded, confirming she'd been threatening to leave him. And Caio. Oh, Caio. He stood dramatically and said, I was the one who broke Grandma's face years ago. Silence. Clara thought, that's it? That's your big reveal? But then he added, Andy also read Clara's diary once. Explosion. Immediate. Nuclear. Clara shot up. You what? Caio shrugged. I was bored. And you wrote very intense things. Paula raised an eyebrow. Regina gasped. Eduardo tried not to laugh. Clara considered committing a felony. The air thickened with tension, and then, as if the universe wanted to escalate things dramatically, a thunderclap rattled the windows. A storm rolled in with zero mercy. Rain hammered the roof, wind howled. Decorations flew, and before long water seeped through the terrace and into the dining area, everyone scrambled. Inside, slipping, yelling, blaming each other for absolutely everything, as they argued in the dark because of course the power went out. A bottle fell in the kitchen. Something creaked overhead. A branch crashed through the ceiling. Chaos reached cinematic levels. And Clara, soaked, exhausted, and emotionally shattered, realized something with crystal clarity. She was stunned, absolutely, cosmically stunned. She inhaled, lifted her chin, and shouted. Enough, and everyone froze, because Clara never shouted. Not like that, not ever, and that scream. It was only the beginning. That Clara's scream sliced through the dark like a lightning bolt, the kind that doesn't just get everyone's attention but also makes them reconsider every life choice that brought them to that exact moment. Everyone froze. Regina clutched her chest dramatically. Paula's jaw dropped. Eduardo looked around as if expecting a narrator to explain what was happening. Jonas nearly dropped his wine. Tragedy of tragedies, and Caio blinked, confused, like he didn't understand why reading someone's private diary wasn't considered a harmless hobby. Enough, Clara repeated, this time quieter, but no less terrifying. The storm raged outside, shaking the windows violently. Rain drummed against the roof. Thunder rolled through the house, deep and angry, and then a noise, a loud, low thud from down the hallway. Everyone turned their heads at the same time, like a herd of prey sensing a predator. The lights were out. The darkness was total, and the sound had been unmistakable. Paula whispered, What was that? Probably the wind, Eduardo said, proving once again that he lied whenever he was scared. That was not the wind, Regina muttered, instantly entering panic mode. Another thud echoed. This one was even louder. Clara swallowed hard. They'll check it out. No. You won't, Paula said, grabbing her arm. You never go toward the noise. Have you watched a single horror movie in your life? I organized this entire disaster. Clara snapped. I'm at least finishing it with dignity, or dying dramatically, Eduardo said. Jonas puffed up his chest. They'll go. And the man here? Marta didn't even look at him. You can barely walk in a straight line right now. Sit down. Clara took a deep breath, lifted her phone to use its flashlight, and stepped into the hallway, the beam. Behind her, the family followed because apparently fear overrides common sense and makes everyone stick together. Even if they argue every 6 minutes, the corridor creaked beneath their weight. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. They reached the guest room door. It was slightly open, and Clara swore she had closed it earlier. She pushed it gently. The door gave way with a soft groan. For a moment, the room looked empty. Then something moved under the bed. Everyone yelped at once. Even Paula made a sound that could only be described as an offended squeak. "Nope," Eduardo said. "Absolutely not. What if it's a raccoon?" Kaya whispered, sounding almost excited. "A raccoon wouldn't go under a bed." Paula snapped. "Maybe it's a ghost," Regina whispered, crossing herself. "Ghosts don't make thuds." Clara muttered, crouching. "You don't know that." Regina hissed, ignoring all of them. Clara lifted the bedspread, heart pounding, breath held. A pair of wet, terrified eyes stared back at her. The thing under the bed trembled, whimpered, and pressed itself against the wall. "Oh," Clara breathed. "Oh, it's just a dog. Just a dog, a small, muddy, shivering dog with floppy ears and a collar that said bingo." Regina gasped like someone had delivered a newborn baby. Paula blinked. Eduardo deflated. Jonas stared blankly. Caio immediately tried to pet it. Bingo growled. "Okay, fair," Caio said, retracting his hand. Clara extended her arms slowly, and Bingo crawled toward her, desperate for warmth. She scooped him up and wrapped him in the blanket. It was the first genuinely sweet moment of the entire day. Of course, it didn't last long, because when they returned to the living room, the storm decided to go full chaos again. Water poured through the ceiling where a branch had crashed earlier. A puddle had formed. The decor Clara had so lovingly arranged now looked like the aftermath of a small tornado. Regina gasped. "Oh my goodness, the house is flooding." "It's barely a puddle, Mom," Paula said. "It's a puddle with ambition," Eduardo added. Clara stood in the center of the room, holding the shivering dog, soaked from head to toe, mascara smeared, hair sticking out like static gone rogue, and she finally snapped. "Oh really?" she shouted. "You're all going to complain now, after confessing all your chaos, screaming at each other, blowing up every emotional mine in existence, and nearly killing each other. This is what you're reacting to." No one spoke. Even the storm paused for dramatic effect. Clara's shoulders shook. Her voice cracked. "I planned this reunion because I wanted us to reconnect. I wanted us to feel like a family again. But all you've done since you walked in is criticize, fight, expose each other, and create a level of chaos I didn't even know we were capable of." Regina opened her mouth, but Clara silenced her with one raised finger. "Nope. Not today." Paula lowered her eyes. Eduardo shifted awkwardly. Jonas stared at the floor. Marta exhaled slowly. Caio actually looked ashamed, which was a historical milestone. Clara hugged Bingo closer. "I can't do this alone," she whispered. "I can't keep pretending everything is fine while all of you refuse to meet me halfway." For once, the family didn't respond with defensiveness or sarcasm. Regina took a tentative step toward her. "We didn't know," she said softly. "We should have," Paula added quietly. "Yeah," Eduardo agreed. "We kind of suck." "Speak for yourself," Jonas said. Marta elbowed him. "Oh fine. I suck too." Clara felt her throat tighten, this time for a good reason. And then, unbelievably, they all sat down together on the floor because the couch was wet and the chairs were uneven. And they talked, really talked, about feelings, and fears, and mistakes, and disappointments. Honesty spilled out of them, uncomfortable, heavy, long overdue honesty. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't painless. But it was real. For the first time in years, maybe ever, the family cracked open something deeper than sarcasm. Then, as if the universe wanted to grant them a symbolic moment, the storm softened. Rain slowed. Wind calmed. The house grew quieter. Clara exhaled. For the first time since the reunion began, she felt something she hadn't felt in ages. A tiny spark of hope. No, not hope for a perfect family. She wasn't delusional. Hope for a better one. And that was enough. But the chaos wasn't done. Not even close. Because just when they thought everything had calmed down, Eduardo found a box of old family photos. And accidentally triggered another explosion. But that, for a blissful 20 minutes, the house was wrapped in something dangerously close to peace. Not real peace, let's not get dramatic, but a fragile, temporary ceasefire held together by exhaustion, emotional hangovers, and the tiny warm dog snoring softly in Clara's lap. But Clara should have known better. Her family didn't do stability. They did emotional earthquakes. And the next one arrived courtesy of Eduardo. He had wandered into the hallway, rummaging around for something useful to do, which meant touching things he absolutely should not touch. That's when he found the box. The dusty, overstuffed cardboard box Clara had placed on a top shelf on purpose because she knew her family well enough to prevent accidental archaeology. "Whoa," Eduardo called out. "Old pictures." Clara's eyes snapped open. "No, Eduardo, done it. Too late." He lifted a photo from the box, frowned, squinted, then tilted it toward the light like had uncovered a long-lost artifact. And then he said the words that doomed the afternoon. "A mom? Who's this man kissing you?" The sound Clara made was not human. Something between a gasp, a squeak, and a very tired sob. Regina spun around, clutching her purse like a shield. "What did you say?" "This," Eduardo repeated, turning the photo for everyone to see. There it was, the picture. The one photo from the family's ancient archives that no one was ever supposed to see again. Regina, much younger, at a party, clearly kissing a man who was definitely not her husband. Everyone froze. Paula reacted first, eyebrows arching high enough to touch her hairline. "Mom," Regina flapped her hands. Outrage. "It is not what it looks like. It looks like you were kissing someone that wasn't Dad." Paula said. "Well, maybe it looks a little like that," Regina admitted, flustered. "Oh my God," Eduardo whispered. "Mom had a secret romance." It was a moment of weakness. Regina shouted. Clara put her face in her hands. This was not happening. This should not have been happening. Why was this happening? Paula pounced like a prosecutor who just found fresh evidence. "So you did cheat on Dad." Regina looked like she was internally fainting. "It wasn't cheating, and not technically, not fully, not." "Exactly, Mom," Paula said slowly. "Those are 3 different ways of saying yes." Regina stomped her foot. "We were going through a difficult time. We had a fight. Your father wasn't speaking to me. He forgot our anniversary again, so you tongue-wrestled a stranger as revenge." Eduardo asked. Regina gasped. "It wasn't revenge. It was emotional confusion." Clara inhaled deeply. Her head hurt. Her soul hurt. Jonas cleared his throat awkwardly. "Well, everyone makes mistakes, right?" Marta shot him a glare. "Sharp enough to slice a watermelon. Do you want to expand on that, Jonas?" He froze. "No, did I do not?" Kaio, ever the chaos connoisseur, leaned forward with bright eyes. "Did Dad ever find out?" he asked. Regina glared. "No, and he never needed to. Y'all certainly don't need to either, but now thanks to Eduardo and his meddling fingers." "Hey," Eduardo protested. "It's not my fault. This was just lying around." "It was not lying around," Clara cried. "It was on the top shelf, above the laundry cabinet, behind a stack of towels. How did you even reach it?" Eduardo shrugged. "I was curious." Clara sat down.
Hard.
Paula crossed her arms.
Well.
"Since everyone's confessing things." "No," Clara whispered.
Paula, don't.
"Maybe we should talk about your teenage secret boyfriend." Clara groaned and dropped her head onto her knees. Regina gasped triumphantly.
Oh.
"Yes. Let's." "No," Paula snapped. "Absolutely not. Too late." Regina turned to the group dramatically. Paula had a boyfriend at 17. A TWNT-something-year-old boyfriend. Paula sputtered like a fire hydrant. "I was 17 and a half." Clara blinked. "That's not better." "It is better," Paula insisted. "You make it sound like I was dating a 40-year-old. He was 22. That's practically the same age." "No, it is not," Clara said. "Illegal," Eduardo corrected. "Highly questionable," Marta added. "Hot," Kaio whispered. "Kaio," Clara snapped. "Stop talking." This was spiraling. Again. As if the emotional storm the night before had just been a warm-up. Paula pointed aggressively at Regina. "You kept secrets too?" Regina jabbed a finger back at her. "And you are a reckless little liar. You hypocrite. You menace." Clara threw her hands in the air. Why are we doing this again? Her voice cracked, loud and exhausted. Everyone froze mid-yelled as she continued, breathing hard. We just had a breakthrough last night. We talked, we apologized, we opened up, we were making progress, and you're all ready to throw each other into emotional traffic again. Paula lowered her hand. Regina bit her lip. Eduardo stepped back. Jonas looked at his shoes. Even Caio deflated. Marta, surprisingly, spoke first.
She's right.
Regina inhaled. I didn't tell the truth because, well, I was ashamed. Paula softened. And I hid my teenage boyfriend because, okay, yes, I also was ashamed. Eduardo nodded, thinking. We're all ashamed of something. Except me, Caio said proudly. I have no shame. Everyone glared at him. Right, he said quickly. Time to shut up. The tension in the room slowly melted. Then something unexpected happened. Jonas stepped forward. If we don't stop weaponizing the past, we'll never move forward. Everyone blinked. Marta stared at him. Where did that wisdom come from? Jonas shrugged. From being soaked by the ceiling yesterday. Regina sighed. Paula exhaled. Clara felt a weight lift. For a moment, just a moment, there was clarity. And then, water dripped from the ceiling again. Directly on Jonas' head. He groaned. Everyone else burst into laughter. Real laughter. Warm laughter. The kind that didn't hurt anyone. And for the first time in years, Clara felt something she had only fantasized about. Her family trying. Here.
Now.
Messy and unpolished and chaotic. But trying. She held Bingo close, smiling softly. Maybe they had a chance after all. Maybe this disaster of a reunion was exactly what they needed. But little did Clara know. One last emotional twist was still waiting for them. Because no family reunion ends without a final unexpected turn. And it was coming.
Fast.
By the time the laughter faded, the floor was still damp, the ceiling was still dripping, and the emotional mess was far from fully cleaned up, but something had changed. The air felt lighter. Like the storm, both literal and emotional, had finally wrung out the tension that had been hanging over them for years. Clara stood in the middle of the living room, holding Bingo while her family gathered themselves for a secondo, a third attempt at behaving like functional human beings. And for a moment, it seemed like they might succeed. Until Caio, of course, opened his mouth. So, he said far too casually, since we're being honest, I also have another confession. Clara closed her eyes.
No.
No more confessions. You already confessed twice. You used up your lifetime limit. But Caio shook his head, stepping forward like a contestant on a dramatic reality show. No, this one is important. Regina sighed heavily. Paula pinched the bridge of her nose. Eduardo whispered, I hate cliffhangers in real life. Caio inhaled. You know how I came here last minute? Uninvited? Everyone nodded. Well, it wasn't exactly uninvited. Someone did invite me. All eyes turned to Clara immediately. What no?
She said.
Why would I do that? It wasn't Clara, Caio said. He pointed at someone else. Everyone followed his gaze. And every pair of eyes landed on
Paula.
Paula's face went blank. Regina's eyebrows shot up like rockets. Clara tilted her head so fast her neck cracked. Eduardo mouthed, plot twist. Paula crossed her arms defensively. Okay, first of all, Caio is exaggerating. Caio raised a finger. Am I? Or are you embarrassed to tell them the truth? Paula opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. She froze. Clara gasped softly. Paula, did you really invite Caio? Paula's jaw tightened.
Technically.
Technically? Regina shrieked. Paula snapped. Yes, technically. I did. The room exploded. Now that was the last thing anyone expected. Paula the perfectionist, the control freak, the judge and jury of the family had invited Caio, the emotional fire hazard? Clara stared at her sister, like she'd just confessed to arson.
But why?
Clara asked, genuinely confused. Paula ran a hand through her hair, frustrated. Because she began loudly, then paused, struggling with the words. She swallowed hard. Because I didn't want you doing this alone. Silence. Not the tense kind. Not the awkward kind. The ono-and-micry kind. Clara blinked.
What?
Paula exhaled sharply. You planned this whole reunion by yourself, Clara. You carried it. As always. And I didn't help. I didn't even ask you how you were doing. So yes, I invited Kaio. Because I thought maybe you'd need someone who could, I don't know, distract everyone. Someone chaotic enough to keep this place from exploding. Kaio perked up. Wait, so I was emotional backup? Yes, Paula groaned. You were the chaos decoy. Kaio placed a hand on his chest, touched. Oh my god. I've never been needed before. Regina dabbed her eyes dramatically. This is oddly sweet. Marta nodded. Shockingly thoughtful. Jonas whispered. Does Paula have feelings? Paula shot him a murderous glare. Clara felt her throat tighten again. You did that for me? Paula looked away. Don't make it emotional, she muttered. I'll throw up. Clara laughed. Then she stepped forward and hugged her sister, something they hadn't done willingly in years. Paula froze for a second, then hugged her back, stiff at first, then properly. Regina gasped like she'd just witnessed a miracle. Eduardo clapped quietly. Jonas almost cried. Kaio petted Bingo like this was a movie. For the first time, Clara felt something that wasn't exhaustion or disappointment. She felt understood. A little. Maybe not fully, but enough. The next morning, sunlight poured into the house like nothing had happened. The storm had washed away the mess outside, leaving behind bright skies, shining leaves, and puddles everywhere. Inside, however, the house looked like the set of a disaster film. Ceiling hole, soaked furniture, a toppled houseplant, a suspiciously bent spoon, and the emotional residue of 7 centuries of family trauma. But everyone worked together shockingly without arguments. They cleaned, sorted the trash, moved wet furniture, packed up. At one point, Regina tried to give Clara advice on how to fold blankets the right way, but Paula smacked her arm lightly and said, "Don't start." And unbelievably, Regina listened. Meanwhile, Jonas and Eduardo fixed the curtain rod that had fallen earlier badly, but with enthusiasm. Marta mopped the kitchen. Kaio cleaned the floor where the dog had peed from fear. Paula swept while humming a sound no one had heard since childhood. Clara watched them, arms crossed, heart full. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't peaceful. But they were trying. Bingo followed her everywhere, tail wagging, claiming her permanently. When the house was finally somewhat presentable, they gathered outside to say their goodbyes. Regina hugged Clara tightly. You did good, she whispered. Eduardo gave her a half hug, half high five. We should do this again, he said. Next decade, Clara muttered. Jonas shook her hand dramatically. I learned a lot, he said. Marta added, he means it. Kaio hugged her like she was his emotional support human. Thanks for adopting Bingo, he said. He needs you. Clara smiled. I think I need him too. Finally, Paula stepped forward, hands in her pockets. So, she said awkwardly, this was not awful. Clara snorted. High praise. Paula rolled her eyes, then softened. Seriously good job, sis. Clara hugged her again, less surprising this time. And then everyone got into their cars. Engines started. Doors closed. One by one, they drove away, leaving Clara alone with Bingo and the soft crunch of gravel under tires. She closed her eyes, breathed in the fresh post-storm air, and smiled. Her perfect family reunion had gone horribly, ridiculously, unbelievably wrong. But somehow, in a twisted, chaotic, absolutely unhinged way, it had done exactly what she hoped. It had brought them together. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but honestly. And that was more than enough. Clara looked down at Bingo, who wagged his tail like he understood everything. Well, she said with a tired grin, if that wasn't a disaster worth remembering, I don't know what is. Bingo barked once. And just like that, Clara walked back inside, ready to start again. Not with a perfect family, but with a real one.